You survive the raging ocean. You escape the jaws of the sea, only to walk straight into something far worse than death by drowning. A place with no shade, no water, no mercy. Just endless dunes of burning sand, and a silence so heavy it feels alive. This was not a second chance at life. It was a slow execution ground. The fate of countless sailors swallowed by the cursed skeleton coast. Situated in the southwest of Africa, in modern-day Namibia, this stretch of land is one of the most unforgiving and feared places sailors have ever known. The Skeleton Coast runs for over 15 kilometers along the Atlantic, from southern Angola down to the mouth of the Kwiseb River, blending seamlessly into the heart of the Namib Desert, one of the oldest and driest landscapes on Earth. From above, the contrast is striking. On one side, the wild ocean crashes mercilessly against the shore. On the other, endless reddish dunes stretch into infinity. The name Skeleton Coast is not a metaphor. It is a description of reality. Rusting shipwrecks, whale bones, seal skulls, and, in some cases, human remains, bleached by the sun, exposed to eternity. What makes this place even deadlier is the Benguela Current, a frigid stream rising from Antarctica. When its icy waters collide with the desert's hot air, a thick fog blankets the coast, lasting days and blinding even the most skilled navigators. In open sea, this would already be hazardous. Near this treacherous coastline, it was almost always fatal. Hidden sandbanks and reefs tore ships apart, often without warning. For many, the wreck was instant death. For others, survival was just the beginning of torment. For centuries, maps of Europe left this coastline as a blank space. When it was finally marked, it carried warnings: the land of no man, the deadly shore, or grim sketches of skulls and wrecks. The Portuguese braved it in the 15th century, but soon learned to keep away. The Dutch called it cursed. By the 19th century, the English had settled on the name Skeleton Coast after failed rescue attempts and stories too dreadful to retell. Few areas along the coast offered any shelter. Even in the 20th century, modern rescue teams struggled against the fog, soft sand, and shifting dunes. Airplanes could not land. Vehicles were swallowed whole by the desert. This narrow strip between sea and wasteland was like a purgatory on Earth. Neither fully ocean nor fully land. A place where survival depended more on sheer luck than preparation. When we think of shipwrecks, we picture waves smashing vessels, chaos, and cries for help. But for those sailing Africa's coasts between the 15th and 19th centuries, the true nightmare began only after the sea. The ocean was brutal but honest. It killed swiftly. The desert, however, killed slowly. The heat, the cold, the thirst, and the solitude all conspired to push humans past their breaking point, until nothing remained but dust. To sailors, the sight of a fog bank on the horizon was the ultimate warning. They were approaching the cursed shore. It was as if the African continent itself was reaching out to drag ships and souls into a dry, suffocating hell. And once a ship touched sand, the real torment began. Survival here wasn't simply difficult, it was impossible. Days brought unbearable heat. The blinding sun reflected off the pale sand, burning skin and searing eyes. The desert floor was like burning coals, making even walking an agony. Thirst consumed survivors quickly, while lungs stung from the hot, dry air. Then came the night. Temperatures plummeted, turning the same desert that roasted bones by day into an icy trap. Winds cut like blades, And without fire or shelter, cold was as deadly as heat. But the harshest enemy of all was the lack of water. No rivers, no lakes, no natural wells. Only rare rains that vanished almost as soon as they touched the ground. Survivors who dared to walk inland in search of salvation found only more dunes, more emptiness. Without water, the body collapses in days. And in this desert, every step drained life faster. Even sweat offered no help. It evaporated instantly, leaving only burning salt on the skin. And above all, there was no hope of rescue. For centuries, that stretch of coastline was a dead zone. No trade routes crossed it, no rescue posts, no settlements. Nomadic caravans kept hundreds of miles inland, and only hunters wandered close to the shore, rarely out of mercy. The desert itself was a silent predator. Dune after dune, identical and endless, with no landmarks to guide the desperate. Sailors who tried to walk often circled back unknowingly, dying of thirst just a short distance from their wrecks. One of the most haunting accounts came from Captain James Riley. In 1815, his ship Commerce struck the reefs of the Western Sahara. At first, there was relief. They had escaped the sea. But soon, reality set in. No water, no shelter, only blazing sand and merciless sun. They wandered barefoot, lips cracked, eyes burning with salt and heat. Some collapsed from sunstroke. Others simply gave up. But survival brought no salvation. Local nomads captured the crew, chaining and beating them before selling them into slavery. Riley himself was forced to march the desert like a beast of burden. What saved him was not strength, but cunning. By persuading a merchant that he could pay a ransom if freed, Riley was eventually delivered to Morocco and rescued when an American ship arrived with the promised payment. He later published Sufferings in Africa in 1817, a book so influential that even Abraham Lincoln cited it as a defining read of his youth. But Riley's ordeal was not unique. The Skeleton Coast held countless stories of slow deaths and vanished ships. In 1533, the Portuguese vessel Bom Jesus, laden with gold, copper, and ivory, disappeared into the fog and breakers of Namibia, lost for nearly 5 centuries. Its remains were uncovered in 2008, one of the best preserved shipwrecks of the age of exploration. Elsewhere in the world, shipwreck survivors could hope for help. Tropical islands with fruit and fresh water, fishing villages in Asia, even ice caves and game in the Arctic. But here, there was nothing. No trees, no shelter, no sign of humanity for hundreds of miles. Only sand, fog, and the violent sea at their backs. Some drank seawater in desperation, or licked condensation off animal carcasses. Almost all failed. The Skeleton Coast was not a place for survival. It was a trap designed to break body and spirit alike. To shipwreck here was not a second chance at life. It was the beginning of a slower death. That is why for centuries, sailors marked this shore not with names or flags, but with skulls and silence. So I'll ask you, faced with that fate, would you fight to survive? Or would you rather have gone down with your ship? If this story gripped you, imagine how many more lie buried in time. Hit like, share this video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next lost tale from the sea. Your support keeps history alive.